right, I think we open the meeting. It is 9:07. Open with the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Before we approve the agenda, I just want to make a comment. We are adding an item in the new business area. It extends out of the personnel report. Okay, do we have approve the agenda with the amendment, or
So moved.
any comments?
Support.
Okay. Now, the minutes. Next item.
We should vote on that.
Vote on it? Okay. Remind me. Yeah.
Keep you
Or
check.
roll of the
Got it, get
ex-chair.
this rhythm going.
Okay.
Okay, now we vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Now, have everybody had a chance to review the minutes? Any comments? No addition? Okay.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 5th, 2017.
Those approved? Vote?
Support.
Nobody supported?
She has to do it because I wasn't here.
Who's going to support that?
You have to support it because I was not at the meeting. so
Okay,
it's
I
not-
support it.
Okay, thank you. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We have no one here for public comment. Okay. Correspondence?
The letter,
Shall I read it out loud?
Well, they all have a copy. This
Okay.
is our fund balance for our community foundation fund report.
Why can't they ever make mistakes in our paper?
Oh dear. Oh, okay. Alrighty. Any comments on the correspondence? How frequently do we have these errors occur?
That's the first one I've seen.
Okay, 'cause I don't recall any, okay.
do you think the foundation sent thank you cards to these two donors, or the donors?
I would think so. I can ask Laura.
Should be good
I
to
think
know.
they're doing.
And I think I had met with her before our last meeting. If at any time you guys would like Laura to come to the board meeting, to talk about, our fund, things we can do moving forward and how we can utilize the funds, she would love to attend the meeting if you would like her to.
That's an excellent idea.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. I agree. On the gift, I think it'd be good to also find out if this is their regular practice. It wouldn't be a problem for us to incorporate that into our regular practice.
What's up?
Thank you cards.
I send thank you cards. I took it over because the staff was doing it and was getting backed up. So I have taken over any donations that come in. I send a thank you right away.
Oh, so you did to these two individuals?
Not on here.
I think that's what she's talking about.
Oh,
That's what I'm talking about.
okay. No, I can find out. I would think that they would, but I will double check.
Okay. So, yeah, and then get back to us. Now, Dave, financials.
Traditionally, this time of year, I'm running about 5 minutes behind.
The timing looked to me perfect.
There's actually 2 of them, one's the January, and one is the December revised. And I'll go over that in a minute.
Did you paginate it this time?
Pardon me?
You didn't paginate it, though. It's a detail, but can I make the request again?
Pardon me?
Paginate the pages. Put the
She'd like
page
page
number.
numbers,
number.
so
Oh.
we can follow
Number the
better
pages.
what page we're on
Yeah.
as you're talking.
Yeah, right. No, I didn't do that. I will, sorry.
Friendly reminder.
The December one is revised. If you turn into the balance sheet, which is the 3rd page in, you'll see that account, under other current assets, account 1028, penal fines receivable is 33,000. In the last ones, it was only like half that. What happened was the November penal fines did not get deposited in December, it didn't get deposited until January. So whether it was here and just didn't get deposited, or it was late coming in the mail, so in actuality, the one at the end of December represents 2 months of penal fine income, and that's why we had the unusual negative balance or small balance in the penal fine for the current month. That was just the reason, so. It was actually, the November one was deposited on 1/3. So it was probably, maybe got here, but yet not deposited because staff or it, with the mail and stuff, the way it goes sometimes, it's just gonna keep it. So that's the answer to the penal fine question that we had for December. Looking at the January statement, moving in, 3rd page in is a balance sheet. You can see the cash positions as of the end of January. The receivable, again, that's the final payment that's going to be coming as a reduction in your billing from the county. It actually will happen in February, so they will have fully paid back that overpayment of the MERS retirement system that they billed you for, with a question of whether it should have gone back farther, which I thought Deb was working with.
I've been doing some, Helen was able to backtrack and get me all of the invoices from the county back to the date that I found in the union contract. So I've got that almost ready to take to Lisa and David and ask them to further look into this because of what the date that's stated in the union contract, and based on what was taken out, dating back to 2000, what was it, Helen, 2011, I believe. So I'm going to get that together and take it to them and request them to further investigate.
So yeah, that was the original question that Deb had raised when they came back with a calculation that he thought it should be farther. And, so hopefully we'll get down to the correct answer here very shortly. And property tax receivable, $321,000 at the end. Pretty much everything else is normal. Accounts payable, 23,000, almost 24. Your accounts payable on average are running less than what they historically have, and I think that's just because of the spending patterns are different. The accounts payables in Manistee County, again, that's the payroll from from January. That's pretty normal. So. Everything looks pretty normal. Then turning into the next page, you'll start off with the month ended of January 31st, 1918, comparing the two. As you can see, January's penal fines from a year ago are down a little bit, and then there are other fluctuations. Actually, current property tax revenue that's been received is down quite a bit from the prior year for the first two periods. No idea why, because December was actually ahead and January went behind. It could be just a timing difference with the outlying townships and everybody settling and getting the money to the county. We'll know that here shortly when they wrap the collection period up. Everything has to be reconciled at the end of March, so we'll know that very shortly. Then on the expenditure side, of course, you can see the variances in the cost from this month, this year to last year, and there are some variances. When you get to, if you turn in the next page, and then one more page where branches are at the top, the expenditures. If you look at the total income for the month, it's 228 compared to 370. It's basically, where it says net income, it basically said, the difference is mostly the millage revenue and the timing of it coming in. If we turn to the next page, at the top it says statement of revenues, expenditures, previous year comparison. This is for the 4 months ended January 31st, 2019 and 18. Penal fines are actually higher, 55 compared to 46. Then the other revenue sources, and as I said before, current year property tax revenue is actually down. The total overall revenue is down at this point. On the expenditure side for the next page, and one more page, then you get to the page that just has like 5 or 6 lines at the top. And it says net income 118,171 compared to 169,982 from the prior year. So we're still running behind, which again is the millage revenue is the major portion. If we turn in one more page, I'm at the one that says statement of revenues and expenditures, budget versus actual at the top. It's the 11th page in. There again, so we're 4 months into it, so we're basically, 33% of the way through the fiscal year. Your penal fine revenue is actually 44% of your budget right now, so that's a good trending point. The other items are, the only other item that's actually going to be over budget from what the original budget is if you are under other income, we have account 67503 designated Selma. The budget was 24, you actually got 28,555. So that's going to be over. That's going to be an additional source of revenue if one of the other categories is below what was originally anticipated.
A question.
Yes.
You said our penal fines, or was the millage that was below? I thought you said penal fines were lower than usual?
No, the 1 month, the January month was lower by like $3,000, but overall for the 4-month period, they're higher.
Okay, yet we managed to be on average with the 44%.
You're beating the average, yeah. I mean, you should be at 33%, you're at 44, yeah.
Okay.
So if you have a couple bad months coming up, you should easily reach budget, I would think.
Thank you.
So here again, starting on that same page, as we start to look at expenditures, 4 months into the year should be at 33%. Personnel is at 29%, so that's below. Of course, we have 2 months during the year that you have 3 payrolls in that month, so that should even itself out. Turning to the next page, subscriptions are at 36, not a big deal because they're not equally over the year. Programs are at 12, that most of the programs happen during the summer months and are upcoming. Books are at 29, so you're still within that. AV is at 40. There again, that's not equally through the year. Capital outlay is at 80%. There again, it's not equal through the year. There's not an issue there. Then the other ones there are in line. Moving to the next page, which starts out with fees and services. You can see that's at 23%, so that's well within budget. Buildings and grounds are at 43%. There again, there's a couple items in there that are front-end loaded. The elevator contract, for instance, that's paid in advance. I would assume, I mean, right now, snow removal is 38 at the end of January, but it seems like you just paid a bill that was 18? I don't know. So there's a chance that snow removal, based on the current status of the weather, is going to be over
We're going to
budget
go
this year.
over.
So, unless somebody's got some magic call to somebody that can stop this mess. But
Would it be wise to maybe increase the set aside for snow removal, rather than just going over budget, in January, February?
The strict letter of the law at the state of Michigan says that you cannot expend funds over your amount budgeted. The reality of it is, most of them amend the budget after they've gone over, and I've yet to see an auditor that will go back and look during the year to see if you're over that budget sometime during the year. So, the strict letter of the law says you're supposed to amend before you spend, is the general consensus. So you're right. Will you run into any problems because you don't do it? As long as you've got the budget amended by the end of the year, you'll be fine.
Okay, that answers that. Anybody has comments, questions?
Then the capital outlay one is in the back, capital outlay fund with the funds that are in there. There has been no funds transferred over to it this fiscal year.
Nice job for me, thank you.
Gary?
Sorry?
The financials.
Should, yeah. I make a motion to approve the financials as presented.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye. Four.
That's fine.
It does or does not have to be voiced?
Not for just the reports.
That's what I thought. Those opposed? Debbie, you're out.
Do you have any other items that you wish me to state for today?
No, we appreciate you coming.
I'm still researching that other thing, I haven't spent a lot of
Okay.
time on it.
And then I would like to meet with you because I've got another couple questions for you, so I'll email you.
Okay,
Okay.
yep, thank you.
Okay, director's report. As we all know, we've been doing some transfers. Staff has been, we're to the final leg of it. We posted our last part-time circulation clerk position internally, and we're guessing no one will sign that, so then we'll get to post that one external. We did not receive a whole lot of applicants for our branch managers. We have 2 open. Unfortunately, one of my applicants withdrew yesterday. So I have 1 interview today, and so I may need to repost it again and look at things differently. We're going to be hosting a spring author event. As many of you guys should know, we have a fall author event, and patrons really enjoy those, so we thought we would put together a small spring one. So we have several authors coming up in the next few months. So be looking for that. I had told you guys at our last meeting about joining Midwest Collaborative for Library Services, and I had a conference call with one of the people that work there that do training workshops, and so I had a conference call with him and was talking to him, and so we are putting together a workshop for staff. It's geared towards customer service, and we're going to look at doing that sometime in August after summer reading is over and all of that. The other piece of what they do is they do strategic planning. And so I spoke with him, and he put together a proposal. I'm just going to give this to you for you to take home, read over it, and then we'll talk about it at our March meeting, talking about, you know, how would we like to proceed, because that is something that is on our to-do list this year. And as I had mentioned at our last meeting, that I really thought that this might be the way to go, because these people work with libraries and they know what's going on out in the library world. So I'm going to give this information to you. Don't read it now. Take it home with you when you need something to do.
Or is that when we can't sleep at night?
Before we move on, I had a couple questions
Okay.
on your first page here. Go back to the administrative part. Who orders the juvenile and teen books?
I've been doing that for the last 6 to 8 months.
Okay. And then you've got added more new authors to the AY list.
AY list is,
Who are they?
AY list is authors, popular authors that our patrons read. And so we put together a list from our book vendor, Baker and Taylor, where whenever, say James Patterson, everybody likes James Patterson. So what happens is when he puts out a book, we automatically get that book, however many copies that we have requested. So we've added new authors to that so that it makes our work less, because these authors are just automatically arriving.
What does AY stand
Automatically yours.
And under technology, patron tech help.
Whenever patrons come in, if it's something that the staff, I've been encouraging the staff to answer tech questions, but if it's something that they can't answer, then they call up Nick, and Nick goes up and helps people with it.
Is this requests, are these requests about the same demand from month to month?
It varies.
Okay.
HVAC, we've been having more issues. Yesterday morning was definitely a Monday. Heat was out, internet was down, 3 staff called in. Yeah, it was a Monday. But anyways, he came back and he was here on Friday. We think we have things good for now, knock on wood. So we'll see what happens. The elevator inspectors were here last week. They do like a weight load or something. I guess it's good for 3 years, so we're good to go there. We talked about the snow removal, hit hard. And then we did have to, I broke down and had the snowbanks removed because we had lost a lot of parking spots. So we should be good until the next storm. And then I think you all saw in your packet, we received a $200 donation from the chamber.
So Deborah, I don't know anything about HVAC systems, but I do know something about
Barry would love to talk about it.
I do know something about getting something new. And when you get something new, it shouldn't have a lot of problems for a long time.
Barry, you're on.
When you get a new HVAC system, for the first 3 years, you're going to have a huge amount of expenses.
Okay.
Because my experience at the airport, I took over a year after that building was completed, and the first 2, 3, years were terrible. It seems like there's about 10% of the parts that are just poor quality and will fail within a short period of time. And once you get those out of the system,
Okay.
then you're good for about 10 years. And now I'm on the back end of that, where
gosh.
I'm starting to get
Okay.
more failures.
So then this is
So
normal.
this is exactly what I saw at the airport.
Okay,
Yeah, I would have thought the same thing.
Yeah.
I talked to Barry about it. Barry
Yeah.
said it's normal.
It's
okay.
unfortunate.
Kind of alarming.
Yes,
I would
yes.
guess that would be-
Yeah, you would think after spending that much money
that you have to downgrade your expectations.
that,
Really?
the guy from temp control, I go back there and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And so he starts explaining all this stuff to me and then I'm like, okay, I'm out. You know?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, alright, we've done that. Any more comments or questions? Moving on to committee reports.
Well, I guess, we had a personnel committee and the date's wrong on there. The 20th stood in my mind because I flew home from California and it took me a long time to get here.
Sorry.
And so the date to correct is the 22nd. And basically Deborah had some questions and we tried to answer them to the point of, we started out with her work plan and we decided that that was to base her goals for the coming year off of the strategic plan and to understand that there is also carryover from 2018. So what we're going to do is to continue discussing this because we discussed 3 things that were that needed to be discussed, and then we planned another meeting to follow up on the rest of Deborah's goals. Also, we discussed moving her evaluation to the end of the fiscal year, which is the end of September, correct?
Correct.
And she started November 6th, so that only is like a month earlier. And then under,
And if I can just, and part of the
Please do.
idea is that it allows us to then incorporate into the budget of the fiscal year.
Approaching.
you're right,
Changes so that we're not doing it midway into the year, so. Now that means we need to get our acts together and actually get things done. And we kind of talked about the budget approval process, and normally we would probably try to approve our final budget in August, with kind of September being, if something comes up and we couldn't. We'll probably still try for that process, still try to approve it in August, but we might make an amendment in September when we wrap up evaluations and those processes.
Is there, question for you, Barbara, is there you had the items up for further discussion, was there any priority you put on them?
I don't think, we kind of went by Deborah's lead on her priority.
So basically, Deborah put together a list of what she thinks would be appropriate goals, and we started working through that. Did not complete it, so I would say there's priorities yet. These are really
You're working on the goals?
to put set together goals so that come late summer, we can evaluate based on those goals.
Are they just related to personnel? Or are they goals for, are they her goals, are they board goals, are they just personnel, what are the goals?
Well, that was the conversation that we had, and I had, based on what you guys had stated in my evaluation, that you wanted me to come up with a work plan. And so what I based my work plan on was my evaluation. And so we started discussing that, kind of thinking that my list is probably more than what I should aim for. But like my explanation was, well, this is what you guys wrote in my evaluation, so this is what I feel I should accomplish. So I think the personnel committee thinks that we should still discuss this and maybe take it down a little bit.
But again, these are this is your work plan goals.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the idea being that personnel committee can focus on it and then bring it to the full board when we're done through that process.
Sounds great.
Question, on your goals there,
Mhm.
that developed out of the evaluation, how many of them are contingent on what we have going on in the library, ongoing projects or anything?
Probably all of it.
All of them?
That's kind of what we discussed in the personnel meeting too, was that, there is carryover.
Yeah, sometimes it's more than just carryover.
Correct,
Okay, not verging on roadblocks though, but
correct.
complicated.
Being positive, being proactive.
Okay,
And-
thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments?
We still got more.
Yeah.
I think she's still.
You have more? Oh.
Oh, yeah, Deborah also presented her, a new position for, and Barry, I just kind of did these. Because we didn't discuss during the meeting who's gonna take notes, so.
Thank you, because I'm terrible at that, so.
So this is kind of what I did, and you need to correct me, and we discussed with Deborah, I'm just gonna kind of jump around on this bottom part. First of all, we discussed she brought out that she wants to hire a new person to be the assistant director for the Manistee branch, because she has an assistant director for the branch office, libraries, but then she's kind of the manager here, plus the executive director, and she needs someone to help manage the Manistee branch so that she can do her job as a director.
Basically get to those things that are in the review that one's
Correct.
already working on.
And so then,
And,
which,
and just,
please jump in.
Jump in. The way I view this is that from an overall management perspective, when she started her job, she was a single manager with 18 direct reports. managing 18 people is a full-time job, let alone doing that and everything else. We alleviated that somewhat when our assistant manager for the branches was hired, so that probably five, so, but still that left a good 10 people technically directly reporting. The idea here is to bring in another manager that those people would mostly report to, whether it be reference or circulation in this facility. And then Deborah would really more focus on things that kind of don't fit into that, and then manage the two directors. Again, the goal being to free her time up so that she can work on the items that we're tasking her with to move the library forward.
Oh, this is a whole
So.
packet.
So that's how I view this, and this is a conversation that actually, I mean, even though this was the first committee meeting under our new committee membership, I kind of transitioned to the old committee membership, and Tamara was on the committee previously, and we had talked about this, I don't know if we met in December or November, whatever our last meeting was, this concept first kind of came up. So this is kind of a continuation, even though the people on the committee have changed a little bit. So a little bit of background there. So,
Yeah,
sorry.
because I needed background too. So, and then Deborah just handed out pretty much what we talked about under those things. And then she's also working on updating all the job descriptions, which is not easy. And after this meeting, we will be scheduling another meeting to continue on where we kind of left off.
And then what I handed out to you is what we will discuss under new business.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, oh, this works really good. Because there's some languages in the library profession as itself that I don't understand, because I have found that every profession has their own language. So certain things, initials that Deborah was using, I kept saying, you need to define that for me because I don't understand. So, and you wrote all that out here, so thank you very much.
I learned how to do that yesterday.
Well, I'm glad to hear somebody else has problems with all the acronyms that are thrown around.
Yeah, so, anyway, I have to tell you that my family got me a new iPad for Christmas, and so I tried very hard to do the minutes on my iPad and then send them to Deborah, because I had to read over my summary of the meeting to make sure that I had what was there. And then I said, I'm gonna try to send this to you. So it took me a couple of tries, but she got it and she printed it off. So you all have a copy. So we all became a little more techie yesterday. Do you have any questions, additions, corrections?
So this is what we're gonna talk about under new business?
Yes.
Okay, I'll wait till
Yeah.
Any other committee have that? Any other committees?
No.
met? Right, under old business,
At this point, we really don't have any project updates. The facilities committee is meeting next Friday on March 8th. And so we will have updates for you at the March meeting.
we have another meeting?
Yeah, close up.
No, we have,
We have a policy on facilities.
that's, yeah, okay.
And let's do this first, and then we'll do the
All right. Now, I added one item to the new business, and that was this position. That was not on the agenda, so what we're gonna do is, now we're moving into new business, we will discuss the management position for, entitled Assistant Director for Public Services.
So on the first page is kind of a summary. During my first year here, I've been doing a lot of observing and evaluating. Due to our current staffing structure, there isn't any daily oversight on circulation and reference staff. I do my best, but it is difficult to be sure that customer and library services are delivered the best that they can be. I feel that creating another management position will help us take the library into the future and provide our community with the service that they deserve. In addition, this will allow me to start getting out in our communities and making connections and creating partnerships to better serve all of our communities. The current staffing structure has the assistant overseeing 5 branch managers, thus leaving the executive director overseeing 13 employees. So the organizational chart that I drafted up would be, if you guys approve this position, so who would oversee who? So that would leave myself overseeing the Assistant Director for Public Services, Assistant Director for Branch Services. In our meeting, in our Personnel Committee meeting, we felt that these 2 positions would be equal, so we thought that we would add to, right now the Assistant Director is the Assistant Director. And so we thought we would rename that position Assistant Director for Branch Services. So then the Executive Director also oversees the Custodian, Youth Services Coordinator, the Administrative Aide, the Library Technician, and the Head of Reference. The Assistant Director for Public Services would oversee 1 full-time and 1 part-time circulation clerk, 2 full-time and 1 part-time reference librarian, and 3 part-time pages. The Assistant Director for Branch Services would oversee 4 full-time branch managers and 1 part-time branch manager. With paying off the county, we have freed up $30,000 a year of our budget. With other cost savings, we also had excess in our revenue last year, so I feel that we can fund this position. And then I just put a quote on the bottom from Randy Riley, Library, Michigan State Librarian. Finding new, better ways to become more engaged with the community is a necessity for all types of our libraries today. So then there is, going in your packet there, there's the job posting that I drafted up, telling about this position. The Manistee County Library is seeking a highly motivated individual with strong leadership, managerial, and supervisory skills to be our new Assistant Director for Public Libraries. The Manistee County Library is a county-wide system with a main library and 5 branches. The ideal candidate is optimistic about the future of the library, and it is a proven manager who can work collaboratively with library staff to deliver an exceptional customer service experience. The Assistant Director for Public Services will be proactive, highly organized, and dedicated to advance library services that better serve our community. This person will report to the Executive Director and will oversee the day-to-day operations at the Manistee Library. We are not looking for someone to simply maintain the status quo, but to challenge and lead our staff, department, and organization to implement current best practices in all aspects of library service. This person will assist the Executive Director with developing and evaluating access to resources to meet the needs of the community. And then there's a job description.
Can I ask a question?
You can, yes.
So Deborah, does this, with the exception of this new Assistant Director for Public Services, is the organizational chart, is it similar to what we have been talking about before?
This is our current staffing structure.
This is our current.
This is our
staffing.
current.
Okay,
So then, once the next piece, then those positions would still line up under the same
okay.
management. Does that make sense?
Well, so these different boxes, these boxes reflect the current
Yes.
organizational
Yes.
structure
Yes.
of staffing. But you're moving towards a different organizational structure.
Yes,
So
but-
what I think you're saying is that it will be, even though these boxes, the names and some of it will change, it will, the functions will still be managed
Yes,
by the new Assistant Director for Public Services?
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Because I was looking at that and I was thinking, this doesn't look
No,
like what I
no,
remember.
no, it's
so-
not our, because we're not there yet.
Okay,
So, but this would, those titles would change.
would change,
But
right? And some of the
still-
organization like would change, yeah.
Right.
Okay, so I'm not even gonna bother with those comments. It would be neat to see, what we're, an organizational chart for what we're moving toward.
Yeah, we had talked about that.
Okay.
So I figured for now, for today, that,
Right.
and then after we meet next month,
Okay.
then we can,
Okay, okay, good deal.
So this will capture, my understanding is there is, the division that you talked about is the 5 and the 13. So the new organizational chart will show the, where the 13 employees, the overseeing the,
this is this right here.
Which is,
yeah.
This is this right
this.
here. So this would leave me overseeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
So
okay? And then this person would oversee these, and this person would be.
oversee those, yeah.
And, you know, so we've been working with the county to have them do more HR. So how does this relate to that, if at all? You know, so if we have now 2 assistant directors who are overseeing employees, you know, there's gonna be more hands on deck to take care of issues, which is great. I'm just wondering how that works in with what we've been working with the county on, and if anything's gonna change with that.
No, this is a management position, which the board, it's a non-union position.
Right.
So the board has the authority to decide if they want to go this direction, so it doesn't really have anything to do with the county.
No, I know that, I'm so sorry, the, Function.
I know
Do
what
you know
you're
what I
getting
mean?
at, because, again, you were part of the committee for the last year,
Yeah.
so. The needs for outside HR services really come into place, and how we might change job descriptions underneath this structure.
okay,
So,
pretty much
to
that's.
be determined.
To be determined, okay,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
So the intent was just to recognize the need for additional management and how we're divvying up the burden of all,
Mhm.
yeah, which
And
turns
we-
out to be, what, 18?
We have a great need for oversight for those, you know, like I say, the customer service, following policies, you know, just making sure that our patrons are given the very best service.
And
And
consistent.
yes, consistent, and what I know is that if I'm not here, you know, what do people do when the boss is away? You know, so there would always be management here, so that the staff is held accountable and to always be giving that exceptional customer service.
And also to help the board implement the strategic plan too. I mean, that's what I would hope, that these additional staff members would be well versed in what the board is trying to achieve in the library, and would be working on, just like you have a work plan, their work plan on how to actualize that vision of the library. And that's why I really appreciate some of the language that you put in the job description. You know, to someone not looking for someone to simply maintain the status quo. I like that, but to challenge and lead our staff. I like that, to implement current best practices. I mean, I like that verbiage, so that's really fantastic. So thank you for putting that in there.
And from my perspective, going back, when our previous director was still here, one of the challenges we as a board had under our previous director, and I think we can kind of see, you know, it continuing today, is there's so much day-to-day oversight needed to manage the organization, that the goals of the board don't get the attention that we kind of want. Under Chuck, you know, roughly I'd say he really probably had the bandwidth to work on one thing that was above and beyond just day-to-day management. And if you look, you know, Deborah has this work plan list that she's, you know, kind of putting together, but, you know, from the things that we talked about in the review, there's a lot of things we want to do. And if we can only choose one, we're not gonna be successful. This is really changing resources to free up to allow our goals through our strategic planning to get implemented because the resources are in place to do that.
Yeah, well said.
I like it because it does, we've already identified what we would like to see happen. We want increased, her presence increased in different community events, more marketing, you know, the freedom, literally the freedom for her to have a schedule that she doesn't have to deal with daily crises. And find a staff that can effectively deal with the entire county's needs. Yeah, because, like you said, Barry, if we only work on one level, on one plane, our need for marketing continues to gallop. And what have we done about it? So, the structure, I think, works well. I see maybe at some point in time, there may be adjustments further down the line, but,
Oh, absolutely, because I think it's ongoing.
oh yeah, the most important is to place in a solid management structure, and then the rest will flow.
And to build off that, you know, one of the things that I was really hoping to achieve on the board personally was just that community outreach and to really understand what the community needs. And we haven't been able to do that for a lot of reasons. You as the director, us as the board, and this would really, if it frees you up, then you can become that really good listener and then help us take what you hear and so that we can be more responsive to what you're hearing from the residents of our county. Yeah. And also it can help us with some of the work that's gonna be needed to possibly transition into a district library. That's gonna take a lot of work, it's gonna take a lot of research, so we wanna make decisions based on evidence. And you're gonna need to be able to have the time to dig into that kind of stuff, so.
So putting together
Yeah.
a sound structure
Structure is so important,
that works
yeah.
and makes progress.
When do
Because
you think?
I feel like we've been at a stalemate for a long time, we just, you know, we're,
Well, treading water is kind of what I was
thank
thinking.
you, that's a better
Yeah.
phrase, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd like to get out of that mode.
Yeah, very good. When do you think we might see the so I'm gonna listen to the wisdom that the rest of it will all fall into place over time.
Yes,
So we get
it's
the-
going to be a process as we have
Oh,
talked
right,
about in our,
right.
but
I
as
think it's a few months.
I-
At the personnel committee level, we had talked about possibly having, you know, updated job descriptions to review at our meeting next month.
Oh, okay, well,
So-
that's nice, okay.
But I think part of it will depend on how quickly we can fill this position, and, you know, I think there's a few steps, so I'd say probably 3 months
Okay.
from now, I think maybe something might be coming to the board on
It
that
is
front.
the committee's intention to work on these simultaneously then?
Well, once the board either approves or doesn't approve this,
Okay.
then it becomes a director hiring issue. So really the board is out of that
No, I was
point.
referring to
The rest of
But
it,
then the rest of it.
it's going to be a
Yes.
package deal, is that what you're saying? It's
That's
all,
what I was wondering, that's where your thoughts were on that.
yes, yes,
Okay.
because of the process,
Okay, good,
That's
that's a
right,
good.
it's an all-inclusive process.
yes,
Okay.
So,
So for the record, that's where you're going,
yes.
okay. I like it. I like it.
Deborah, this, I know nothing about the qualifications for a position like this. The required ones, bachelor's degree, 3 to 5 years of experience in a public library, and 2 years of supervisory experience. Sounds wonderful.
I just
Is
had-
it realistic?
Well, we talked about that,
Hopefully.
we talked about that also at our personnel committee. You know, we have a hard time attracting
Yeah.
qualified applicants, you know, like I said, with my branch managers. I was shocked by what I didn't get. You know, and so we did talk about why,
Right.
you know, and I think, you know, we all know, you know,
Right.
housing here.
Right?
It's hard to, you know, I interviewed an applicant for my circulation clerk that makes $11 and some cents an hour. She was from Mount Plaza. Yes, I would have loved to hire her,
Yeah.
but I couldn't bring her here.
Right, we're, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
You know, where's she gonna
where's
live?
she gonna live?
You
You know
know?
what, I will say on the aside, if you do find a situation like that, please let me know, because I've been watching how people are getting housed. And it's often like calling G. Pelton or some other, or realtor to say, we need to find something, and I'm even learning
Well,
that
that's
there
who I
are
got my
these
house
little.
through, yeah.
Right, there's nuggets here and there, but you kinda have to plug yourself in the community and start asking. You're not just gonna find a listing, but it is super hard.
Yeah.
I'm just sorry that we might have missed a really great applicant because
You
of
know.
that, that's a real
So,
bummer.
so yes, that was one of our
Okay.
conversations,
So
so.
this starting pay, is this industry standard for these
Thi-
level of qualifications?
This is the same pay that Andrea was making as assistant slash children's librarian. This is the same as the assistant director for the branch.
Is it the type of salary that matches up with these qualifications that are required?
Hard to say,
Hard to say, oh,
you
okay,
know.
okay. I figured you would have had maybe like there's some kind of survey or something that goes on to, in your profession, that kind of.
I mean, it kind of like with my position and comparing my position to other libraries in the state, it's hard to do. You know, you have.
Right, yes.
Everything's a
And we-
little bit different.
You have
Yes,
many
right.
different
Yeah.
factors, so like I said, I felt safe with this.
And I think
Okay.
also because for a pay quality issue, if it's organizationally up here, you can't just suddenly say, oh,
Right,
now
yeah.
this is gonna be at this level, you know.
Yeah.
Now, it may turn out that this isn't sufficient to, and then we will have
Have
to
to talk about
evaluate
it.
that.
Right.
But I think it's the logical place to start.
That amount,
Yeah.
okay. I have one last question. How does this change your job description?
How does it change my job description? I guess to put it bluntly, it takes off I feel like I'm babysitting, and I'm not able to do my job.
No, I'm saying, I'm sorry, once this person is hired and takes on these duties and responsibilities,
I don't think there's
How does it
anything
change?
I don't think there's anything in here that,
takes away from your job description.
No.
Because
Okay.
ultimately, as
She's
executive director,
responsible.
she's still responsible for all of those duties.
Okay.
It's just, there's
I have to
someone
make
else
sure that this
is
person is
doing
making sure
more of the
all of this is
day-to-day.
getting done.
okay,
So-
that's.
And the way I see it is that the new structure just allows for ongoing management presence. And that we will be, you know, reviewing how we divvy up this responsibility. And that she will have 2 people ultimately reporting to her, but this gives her a far more comprehensive view of the ongoing activities and the needs in the county system, which she
Good.
didn't have before.
Right,
In my definition of a director is that it's the director that's getting all the tools that the staff needs to do their job, for one thing, to make a presence known in the community, and that's I call it kind of like a political savvy type of thing, because that's kind of what it is that you're out there representing the library to all of these different organizations, and also then trying to get money so that we can do all the things that we want to do.
Picking up on your comment, what this allows Debbie to do, and this is something I've been concerned about for a long time, is her visibility. Without worrying about in the back of her head when she's out somewhere talking to XYZ, a corporation, what's going on at home. And this frees her up because somebody else is making a decision about a day-to-day activity that she does not have to really make. They can report to her, but, about the decision that's been done, but she has ultimately delegated some of these responsibilities, which does not remove her total accountability, but, it's the flexibility and the ability to be creative. And what we've found in the past is that she is full of ideas. She is very creative, very resourceful. We would like to let that blossom a little. Put it in flowery language.
Are we all dreaming of flowers now?
Yes, yes. I'm looking for my grass.
Is there a motion that you are looking for on this?
I am.
But I mean, because I mean, there's, from my perspective, there's two parts of this. One is the hiring, and then there's a corresponding budget adjustment. We don't necessarily need to do the adjustment now, because David
I'm
pointed
not
out-
sure that we will, as we all know, we've been down 2 branch managers, and another position. So, you know, those savings over the last
Right.
several months, I think will balance us out. I'm not sure if we will really need to make a,
Well,
we might.
those are in wages,
But-
this would be in salary, so.
Yeah, we might
there's a-
need to move
there's-
some
right,
around
and
maybe,
that's-
but within that,
So you're not looking or suggesting we make those budget changes now? In your cover letter, you basically said where you think the savings are there to allow this within our current budget. And we can work on that at some, typically halfway through the year, we do a set of budget adjustments, so that would be the time to do this now.
yeah, and
Okay.
I can talk to Dave about that and see
Okay,
what he.
okay.
So you're
Then,
saying it's a series of budget adjustments possibly?
No, it's just moving, because it would come under salaries rather than
Yeah.
whatever it is for the other staff. It might just be moving from
From wages
that
to
line
salaries.
to
Okay.
salaries.
Line item
With
adjustment.
that description, I would make a motion that we authorize our executive director to post and to hire an assistant director for public services as has been presented.
I support.
All those in favor?
This is something.
think
This
that
is
we
we have to go
a
around.
roll call
Yeah,
because it is
okay.
budgetary.
We will do a roll call then.
Yes.
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 Okay. The position is so approved.
That's exciting.
Thank you.
That's really exciting.
I am excited.
Yeah, good luck finding finding someone, that's key.
That's still a nice challenge to have. Okay, the video now. What I would like to hear, Debbie, is maybe feedback from the last video first.
Okay. Go ahead, start talking about
Anybody
it.
have comments?
I thought it was wonderful. I actually talked to other people, non-libraries, and said, you need to look at this video. It talks about how boards should operate. And then I went to the website, it's like, oh, we can't get it. It's only for us.
I
know.
all you need is this information, and
Okay,
then you can access it. Anybody, you guys can.
okay.
I like to.
Because I wanted someone else to see it that was in a different organization I'm
Yep.
in, just because while some of it is specific, most of it is, hey, just
Yeah,
about
it is.
roles and responsibility of boards, and it
It
just
was
like.
so
this is
succinct,
good.
it was short
Yes.
and very
Yep.
succinct, and to the point.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Being a newbie, it helps.
But even if you've been on for a while, it's still a good reminder of what you need to do. is good to go?
I'm not sure. Last month.
Sounds
But then you can always show that part.
Welcome to Short Takes for Trustees. I'm Beth Novolinsky, the Director of Marketing and Communications for United for Libraries. We are the division of the American Library Association for trustees, advocates, friends, and foundations. I'm here today with our Executive Director, Sally Gardner-Reed, and we're speaking about board ethics. Sally, I know it's very important for boards to act with the highest level of integrity, and I know most do. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, actually it goes back to their fiduciary responsibilities. But I want to say before I continue that what I'm going to talk about would be really good standards for advisory boards as well. So in the nonprofit world, ethical responsibilities for fiduciary boards really are broken down into three categories: the duty of care, the duty of loyalty, and the duty of obedience. The duty of care really is to be prepared. So earlier we talked about those board packets and the importance of boards actually reading those board packets. And it is very important for boards to stay up to date, not only with the board packets, but for all the information that they're provided and what's going on in the library world at the national, state, and certainly at the local level. Boards make a lot of very important decisions and are asked to make those decisions, setting policies and all the wonderful things that they do. If they do them without being well informed, they really are being negligent in their duty.
No, it's actually the part.
Of care. The second is duty.
Sometimes it's just
Of
restarted.
loyalty, and that means that the library always comes first. They
So you're at 142, so if you just reload it.
always have to set aside their own personal interests and never can take advantage of their role as a trustee at the expense of the library. So for example, they cannot use their position on the board to bid on contracts, they can't use their position to have fines waived at the library or to take an advantage on the waiting list for popular titles. They cannot use the patron records for their own use, that sort of thing. So that's a very important standard, that the library always comes first in the duty of loyalty. And the final one is duty of obedience, and that's really knowing the mission and keeping the library's mission front and center, never thwarting that mission or bending it to divert library resources to another agency, even if it's another similar nonprofit agency. The library's mission always comes first.
Are these the only examples of ethical behaviors?
No, there are other potential breaches of ethics. We talked earlier in another webcast about board members speaking out once a board decision has been made, and certain board members perhaps speaking out against that decision when they didn't agree with it. That's an example of a breach of ethics. When a board decision is made, it becomes the collective decision of the board speaks with one voice. So it is a breach of ethics for an individual board member or several board members in the minority to speak out against a decision that the board has voted on and approved.
I've heard cases where board members or a board member speak to the staff about the library director's performance or how staff morale is. Is that okay?
Frankly, I can't think of any occasion when it would be okay for a board member or a couple of board members to speak to staff about a director's performance. First of all, no board member singularly or even in a handful of board members should ever act on their own without full board authority. That's first of all. And secondly, that's a way to really undermine the director. They should never get in between the director and his or her staff. If there are concerns about the director's performance, they should be talking to the director, him or herself, and not going directly to staff. That's just an occasion for real dysfunction within the library. And also, it's an occasion for potential lawsuit, because if the director is in any way reprimanded or treated improperly by this staff person, say so, that could really lead to some major litigation. So it's very imprudent.
How about the other way around? How about a staff member going to a board member about complaints about the director?
That will happen from time to time when a staff member is disgruntled. And the best way for a board member to handle that is to point that a staff member to his or her supervisor and let the staff member go through the proper chain of command. There should, of course, be a grievance procedure in place, a policy that will help address those concerns. Normally, it is a step-by-step procedure where the staff member goes to the supervisor and it has an escalation where finally it does come to the board if it can't be resolved at a lower level. If, in fact, there isn't a grievance procedure in place, the board member should ask that staff member to speak to the supervisor, and at the very next board meeting, that board member should let the board know that they need a grievance procedure right away.
How about when trustees search office records because they suspect malfeasance or just want to audit the spending? Is that okay? Don't they have a right and responsibility to make sure that the library funds are being used properly?
Well, again, I would say, first of all, that no one or several trustees should be acting on their own without full board approval. So that's the first thing. Secondly, if the full board suspects any kind of malfeasance, they should be talking in executive session with their director. And also, if there is signs and probable cause for malfeasance, they should be talking to their attorney, and perhaps even the police. Also, as far as their responsibility goes in terms of monitoring and auditing the library's spending, there should be a very firm procedure in place for the trustees to monitor on a regular basis all income and expenditures of the library.
Do you have any final thoughts on board ethics to share with us?
The fact of the matter is that most boards, in fact, I would say probably 99% of boards act ethically all the time without even thinking about it. But it's good to have a formal standard practice in place to ensure that there are no pitfalls and nobody accidentally makes a misstep. So there should be an ethics statement for all board members to sign. There should be an evaluation for the library director. There should be a procedure in place to monitor income and expenditures. There should be a singular spokesperson for the board, and that typically would be the board president or chair. And there should never be public dissension by few of the board members against a board decision. Everybody should have an opportunity to express their opinion within board meetings. All of the things that we've talked about help make sure that the board moves ahead ethically and responsibly and maintains that high degree of integrity.
Thank you, Sally. This was a really good discussion about board ethics. And like you said, most boards are doing very well. But we have compiled a list of resources that our viewers can access. They'll be provided by the library director, and we encourage our viewers to look over those resources, and if you have any questions, go ahead and discuss those with your library director. Thank you.
Hey, thoughts? Yeah, I'm here. There was she made one comment about the finances and the questions if one board member has problems with the way funds or revenues are being allocated, is it anybody's thought on the fact that, do we have an adequate discussion when Dave comes here and we go over the budget, from the compiled financial statements? Are you comfortable with that? We don't need, do we need or do we not need another additional discussion on finances and how we spend the money?
I think that's such a great question. I will be honest, since now I'm on the finance committee, I've often wondered in this last year that I've been on this board if I'm looking at them correctly, if I'm thinking, am I formulating the right kind of questions? I'm always wondering, am I asking the right questions? And I appreciate Dave saying, nothing looks amiss and everything seems to be on track, but I can't help but wonder, is there something else I should be asking? Is there something else I should be looking at them from a different perspective, a different light? Because I don't have a financial background, that's not my profession.
Yeah.
So I just feel really insecure if I'm bringing to the table what I need to be bringing to the table. So I appreciate your broader question, and maybe we could have a little education on how to read financials and how to talk about them.
That's where I was going.
Oh, okay.
Because all of us have been involved in different groups, and the financials have all been handled differently. And I would could you look that up and see if in the library, there is some kind of a general tutorial they have?
I will look, I'm making a note right now.
Yeah.
I know that when the Library of Michigan sent me a financial, it's something to do with public libraries, and I will look into that and see what's in there, because I know there's stuff about financials. So I will look into that and bring it to the next board meeting.
Even if there isn't anything that's a short and sweet little video,
Yeah.
if we need additional meetings that we have literally have to sit with an hour's worth of tutorial, I think it would be in our best interest. I mean, this has been your life for years, Barry. And I have been on a number of different boards, but all the financial was hidden. Some of it was hidden, and some of it was just handled differently, more casually. This is following different sets of rules, and I think it would help us to be aware of what the basis is for a lot of these financial decisions.
And just from my perspective, and one of the requests I had made that we now generally see in our packets is, since I've been in a position where I'm one of the signers, from my perspective, you learn a lot when you go through signing that stack of checks. It's like, because when you look at the budget, they're just categories, but then when you look at actual expenditures, it's like, why? And so that's why I requested, I don't know, a year ago, that as part of our packet, we get a list, basically the check register. So for the month, here is every expenditure that has been paid, so that not only the person signing the checks gets to see that, but we all can look at that. So that is one of the things, in addition to just, the balance sheet, the profit and loss, and those standard financial statements. That to me is always something that's useful, and that's something I see on other boards that I'm on, is that level of transparency where you actually see those expenditures.
That's what I haven't seen, and that's what I appreciate, because it gives a face to a name.
You don't have that in here this month?
No, it's not in this one.
I debated about, I wasn't done completely with the list before that went out. And it would have been February's and.
Well, you can include it in next month's.
Yeah, that's what I was going to.
In my prior experience, most library boards have always approved the expenditures. And I know every board looks at it differently. You're already saying that, you approve the budget, and so you approve these expenditures. But I don't know if that is something that we should be doing. Like, when we should have that list, and when you approve the financial report, you should be approving, even though they've already been paid, I think that you should be approving that list.
I would agree with that. I know the county does, city does, DEA does, that is generally a part of the process. And yeah, it's kind of weird because those checks have already been written and gone out, but it's still formal activity by the
Right.
board that those expenditures were reviewed and formally approved,
Yeah.
even if it was after the fact.
Well, I don't think that they should be paid if we haven't approved them. If we're gonna start this new procedure, which I agree that most boards I serve myself, approve the bills to be paid, but they're not paid until after the board has approved it, which makes it really hard because there's timing issues.
Yes.
You know, and
I don't
that's,
know how you
that's
could
really,
even.
really a problem. So sometimes they get around that by saying you can approve bills up to a certain amount, or you can approve certain standard bills that come through every single month, and that kind of detail gets worked out, and anything over that. So I don't know, maybe this is really something to think about, and I don't know which committee is the one to think it through, but I like thinking about this, because I agree, I like that list too, I think it's really interesting, and it's important for us to see.
Yeah, it
I don't
really
ever want to
shows-
micromanage it,
Mhm.
but it is nice to see where the money is going, how it's being spent, how it relates to the budget, and you can see trends.
And I
Again,
think-
like I just confessed, I don't know how to really talk about all the financials, so I mean,
Yeah, there's a
That'd
big
be
difference
nice.
between approving a check for mileage reimbursement
Right.
versus a $2,000 expenditure. We also we don't have a lot of those, you know, where they're big lump sums that somebody has to sign a check for.
Yeah, I think most of
Except
it,
like PVAC or something like that.
yeah, most of it is, you know, the day-to-day operations.
Mhm.
And like anything that is unusual, like I will, you know, I emailed you guys and said, hey, you know, we got this, you know, what do you want me to do? You
So
know,
we have part of a procedure
so I
in
think
We
place.
do.
Yeah.
we're kind of on track, but I think that approving that list, having that list in front of you, I think from prior, the way things were handled prior to me getting here, had you guys had that list, there might have been more questions from the board visually seeing that and saying, what is this? You know what I'm saying? So I think that would be good for you guys.
No, I agree with that, because we've had some cost savings.
I'll toss out an idea that I think works well in one of the other boards that I'm on that has a finance committee is because between a monthly finance committee meeting and a monthly board meeting, you now have 2 points during the month where things can be reviewed and possibly approved. So that might be a way of dealing with some of those timing issues that the board could say, well, at least the finance committee, a fraction of the board has reviewed and approved it before it got paid.
You mean like sending an email with the list for review?
Just, I mean, assuming the finance committee would meet monthly, you know, unless it's, the same week that the board meets, which, if it was a couple weeks removed, then you've got a meeting every 2 weeks of someone, board involvement to review those things. Because it is problematic waiting to pay anything until the board meets. It just is, you just start incurring financing costs because you're never getting things paid on time.
For
That
sure.
type of model.
But there are some things that, like we said, are typical, they happen all the time.
Yeah.
And maybe we could kind of quantify what those are and say, well, that she has absolute license to pay all those bills, but if anything becomes really big or abnormal or outside of what we normally is paid, then that could possibly wait for the committee or the.
It's a large,
boards to look at.
large periodic payment that
Right.
either was scheduled or wasn't
Right.
scheduled.
And I think that's what she's saying about her emails about the HVAC, is
Yeah.
that she's bringing to our attention the big one. But in
Something
emails,
that-
we can't discuss, we can't make a decision on. So you're making us aware of it, which is
Right.
good.
Right.
But here, we're kind of talking about a little bit more, are we talking about more oversight, where we're approving big things, or we're just becoming aware that they're being
And
So
I think,
this is policy that needs to be
Yeah.
thought about.
and I think when the person that signs them, like Barry signed the other day, because we had a committee, so he signed, and like he says, he looks through them.
Right.
And so I think that whoever signs them, I think is very aware, and if he has questions, he asks me, he says, what is this?
Right.
So I think that in itself is kind of like an oversight. It may not be a person that's on the financial committee, but it is somebody that's, you know, on the board, well aware, and, you know, if there are questions, I get questions, you know, so I think that in itself is a good oversight.
Something needs to be maybe fleshed out.
Yeah,
Yeah, good conversation about it.
yeah, I mean, just maybe some kind of a informal, formal approval process.
Well, that would go in your financial policy that we haven't made our way to yet.
Yeah, someone would write policy.
Right.
You know, Barry's on the right track. One of my boards, every month we get a copy, check register, what went out. Finance committee, I tell you, the board is central wellness. They'll send us a list. Now, they've got two people to look over the check register and the credit card, both, to look to see what was spent. And they'll make a recommendation for approval or not. But every member actually gets a copy of that. So we can red flag the ones that we have questions on. We've done that before. Now, maybe for information, that's what you really want to do here. Because when you go to FinanceNet, they're only making a recommendation. This board makes the determination of what you're going to do with it.
Maybe that's a good place to start, is to get a copy of the check register.
Yeah, I mean,
Which
someone-
we
Which we do every
have
month.
we do.
been,
We
this
usually
month,
do, don't
it's,
we? Helen?
this
Yeah.
month it's been done.
I mean, it's not the check register, it's a list of the checks that have been,
Right, that's right.
you know, I don't think you want
No,
to,
I don't want to.
No, I don't want the whole thing, thank you very much.
you know, simplified,
Just the list. Yeah, but two
But for
board
our
meetings
purposes
in one
now,
month.
I would think our list would satisfy that,
Right,
For sure.
rather than the entire check register.
yeah.
so you want the list, like we do checks every 2 weeks. We pay
Oh.
bills every 2 weeks.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So you would want that list before the checks got done? I mean,
No, I think
I mean, the
we've had a
No.
discussion here on many different ways it all could be handled. I don't think, I've heard we've landed on one correct answer because the library is unique and we're pulling experiences from other boards. I think a committee needs to think about it and come up with a process that fits here.
And that should be part of our financial policy.
Is that
Yeah.
and that's what you're saying, the financial policies. So,
And then,
which you guys haven't gotten to yet, yeah.
what Debbie does already is send us an email letting us know about unusual high / or both expenditures that she had to make a decision about.
Right.
Yeah.
So nothing needs
So
to
there's a
change right
notification,
now.
yeah.
I think that's what she's trying to get direction. Nothing
Yeah.
needs to change right now, but the policy committee, when they get to the financial policy, will have to flush this out
okay,
and come up with a process. So, but nothing's gonna change now.
okay.
Right.
So I could talk about the, but a different topic. Do we have a grievance policy?
As for
Yes, we
What they
do.
were talking about, staff
the,
grievances and,
the union has a grievance
okay,
But we,
procedure, but,
but now we
and I
have,
believe this was something we kind of talked about in our policy
We flushed
committee
it out.
about, you know, if if one of my employees, like they were talking about, has something to say about me, rather than going to a board member, they need to bring it to me, and we need to, and that is always, there's always a board member that will talk to employees. And so that's where we need to get the staff to say, rather than going to a board member, you need to come talk to me, and we need to try to talk this through.
but
and then-
a question now, in light of a somewhat deeper management structure with direct managers that aren't you, is the process that first you go to your direct manager, you can't resolve it, then you go to you, then whatever the rest of the, I mean, so.
That's how it
potentially
would work, yes.
That's logically how it should work. Do we have anything that says that that's how it works? Or is it everything goes to you right now?
Well, right now,
Well,
it goes to Deborah. And then the fail-safe is if it didn't work, if they went to you and it didn't get resolved, then it went to the president of the board.
right.
So, but you're right, we now are going to have a new organizational structure with a different management. And so it's gonna have to be changed again.
Right.
And you talked about it in terms of the union contract, so that's a policy for
Right.
union staff.
That's another piece.
But now we have non-union staff
Mhm.
who could have issues. What is the process for them? So I think that
Yeah.
maybe, they were very explicit that you should have a grievance policy
And that's
to
it, and-
avoid some of the ambiguity of, well, I don't know who to talk to, so I'm gonna go to a board member, or I'm gonna go, do things and kind of bypass the chain of command.
And that's what people think, so yes, we
Well,
do need something set in stone so that staff understands that they come to me with any issues. And if the two of us cannot resolve it, then we will bring in the board. But they should not go directly to a board member because they're mad at me.
Right, exactly.
So that's where we need to get them. So yes, having something in place to be able to show them, this is the procedure.
I'm hearing two things here. One, that the employees may not understand fully the role of the trustees. And number two, that we maybe have to look again, and we've looked at the policy for grievances, and there's been a lot of discussion over it. Review it again in light of the increased non-union management positions. So that should be up for review with the policy committee. Yeah, and in the unspoken part of that is that there has to be another educational piece for the employees that clearly outlines the trustee's position. We are not the bypass, is what it is. The other thing is, as we've had in the past, we've had a rumor mill going, and we've had people doing a lot of talking. They need to know that there is a direct procedure and in writing and, whatever our policy will stipulate. And that's the way the rest of the world really works. So we can look at that in terms of aligning ourselves with all the standard language for union and non-union grievances, rather than recreating something ourselves. I think, this is a time to look for resources.
Absolutely. Doesn't work great.
All right, we have video, we'll discuss the position. Any other board trustee comments?
There was something that I had popped in my head earlier in the meeting, it's like, but now it's popped out, so, no, I don't have anything.
I am looking forward to continuing the little video, the little vignettes, if you will, and then having a discussion about it. Because we're gonna have a whole month to, think about the ethics. And then, what is our topic for next month? Have you chosen it yet?
Board meetings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. What are they, about 10 minutes long at the most?
Yes.
Alrighty. Anybody have any board member have any comments at all? Okay. I think we're ready to adjourn.
So moved.
Supported.
Okay, done.